Yeah, of course I'm gonna do the ending.
All right, we are in with the power of cheats.
Cheater. Cheater.
we have entered the final level of Braid
didn't
more
even
now than
solve any of the
ever.
puzzles.
The problematic. Notice that up there.
What?
Yeah, problematic.
Alright.
Yeah, beautiful play. All the commentary on like the actual objects in the attic and like the city and everything and the art style of Final Worlds is all in
Yeah, you want that?
the regular
Go to
videos. Go to the
Braid.
real Braid. This is trash Braid, more trash than ever.
-6.
Yeah, speaking of more trash than ever, we're gonna learn. Okay, yeah, -6. -6. So this is quote unquote important to people who consider watching a video series about a fan mod of a game from 2008 to be important. This is important because in regular Braid, this was like a twist ending, right? Like this was actually the first thing that happened, or maybe you read the story backwards, like I like to do. But then it becomes the last thing that happens. It's closest to World 2, right? But here it is in fact following consecutively from the world that you just played with the ring and everything, ring singularity, aka hesitance, yeah, and our world has a title. It's called Braid instead of just a 1 and then a period, so that means it's better by definition. But unfortunately it has worse text. So what really happened in that long ago encounter? So he's thinking about all this stuff. This is at the end of all this stuff. It's not like a flashback like in regular Braid. He's thinking about all that stuff from regular Braid and from More Now Than Ever, trying to put it together. He finally confronted this thing at the heart of it all that the World 6, the World -5 text was about. Anyways, what really happened in that long ago encounter? Tossed by a storm of passion and association, memories of that fateful hour have become muddled, replaced wholesale. Perseus, Cetus, Andromeda. Perseus is the Greek hero. Cetus is the monster that like eats Andromeda. Tim wants to dissect it and grasp each strand as something distinct. Borromean rings is a geometry thing. They're like 3 like rings, like Olympic rings that are if you took one of them away, then the other 2 wouldn't be connected. Anyways, look it up on Wikipedia. It's cool. But it is too fundamental. It cannot exist in pieces. Tim remembers, or anticipates, how he would yank on the princess's arm, pulling and constricting her from every direction. But then, who was that monstrous knight? So the thing about it being too fundamental, of course, a braid, the phenomenon of a braid, if you take one of the strings out, is just like the Borromean rings. Then you just have, I guess they're twisted around each other, or maybe they're not even twisted. If you take the middle, like one of the 3 strands out of a braid, they might just kind of be going over and underneath each other and not even be twisted on that. But no, surely they're twisted. Anyways, you just get like twisted, a dumb twist.
I think.
And you don't the whole phenomenon of the braid is like an emergent property of the 3 things together. It can't be isolated to any one of the individual strings, and if you pull it apart to look at the strings, then you lose the big picture, which is Tim's whole thing. He wants to look at the micro detail. He's like studying physics and fundamental forces. He's like missing, he's too focused on this thing. Yeah, he likes to break things down, but it's not holistic. That's what marks the advancement from Braid to the Witness, which I'm sure I'll talk about in the main video series, is the Witness is open to that holistic perspective and knows that subjectivity and consciousness and also putting together things from many fields of knowledge is the key, versus like Tim is on the search for like this single moment, like
the answer to it all.
Yeah, like this one equation or something that's gonna like be the enlightenment truth that will like somehow eliminate a lifetime.
Yeah, one theory to end them all.
Yeah. 2 threads make a twist, a Mobius loop through time, and a long-denied conclusion is inescapable now. The heroic rescue, the dreamt-of golden age. In the world that flows contrariwise, faded memories of the impending horror, and his most shameful, violent act, none other than the honeymoon palace, materialized. Entangled opposites spiral inwards, crushed to a timeless identity. So this is about I mean, so people play Braid and they're like, whoa, twist ending, like he was actually a stalker going after the princess, and that is like part of the story, but another part of the story is like in
That's
regular
like the
Braid.
caricature, but the text in Braid isn't about that. It's
Well,
about like
regular Braid always has this thing where there's the metaphor and then there's the sci-fi layer. There's like the relationship, real worlds, like what is it like, and then the analogy of like, oh, I see things one way and you see things the other way. Like I'm working to create the atom bomb, but then for other people that might be bad, just like politically, because you know your city might get bombed or something. And
that's like the most.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, or you know, or like I'm attracted to the princess, but actually, like she thinks I'm a crazy stalker. So that's like the relationship metaphor of like, what if time flowed backwards, which in fairness is hard to create a real world metaphor for. And then, but the sci-fi side of that is like, what if actually people were going multiple ways in time? The explosion would actually seem like a creation to someone like rewinding the tape. And similarly, like, what if a relationship or an encounter or something, you know, like saying hello to someone for the first time, it would be like a tragic goodbye for the person living backwards in time, you know, and when the tearful goodbye would be like, hi, I just met you.
I was having this very experience when we were reading the Braid text, because there's a part where the princess's eyes narrow, and I'm like, wait, does that mean that in another timeline her eyes are widening and she's like amazed to meet him?
Exactly. So it's like, I mean, that's like the twist that is so amazing to people, is like, whoa, it's a different story read in the opposite direction. So just about that and the equality of these the entangled opposites. And of course,
so what you're
spiraling
saying
inwards,
here,
crushed through timeless identity is also a callback to the black hole stuff from the previous world.
Well, I don't know if this is what you're going for, but when I read this text, I really like that, again, you're like having kind of both of the directions, and it's a sort of like both are sort of true, and it's like, how can these both be true at once? That's like a very familiar feeling to me. And you just do a really good job of painting these like, you're like saying opposite descriptions of the same thing happening, and I just really enjoy that.
Yes, yeah. I think also, like at the end of regular Braid in the epilogue, it's such a shocking twist. And Tim, who's been kind of closing in on the princess, right, in worlds 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, getting like more and more delusional and single-minded, he's then in the epilogue, he's just like, wow, that wasn't what I expected. Like, I don't feel enlightened right now. Like, I'm more confused now than ever. And, you know, and like, I just know that like, this must not be the right approach, or like the princess, you know, this was something bad that I did. Like the scientists after the atomic bomb, where they're like, oh wait, like maybe we've created something horrible. And
just being like driven for an answer and then finding out that your method doesn't work, even though the whole time you've been trying so hard just to get the answer.
But it's confused, right? He's confused after the epilogue because this crazy twist ending just happened. It's like, whoa, like, you know. So more now than ever, Tim starts out, he's like, I want to pick up all those stones. I want to like get unconfused about this. And here I'm trying to portray in a little bit more like direct, literal text about the sci-fi side of things, like Tim is like realizing like, oh no, like the bad and the good things are like, those are literally the same because of this crazy back and forth time thing.
Right.
Yet no duel can contain the princess. Duel as a pun, because it's like Tim and the knight are dueling, but then also, you know, it's a duality. It's like the two, you know, but with there's three things. It's Braid. Yet no duel can contain the princess, as all things are enveloped by her. Inaudible, her voice rings out in every note of sound. Inconceivable, all of comprehension weaves through her. She yet moves the world beneath the fixed eternal earth, and stands oracular above mingling river waters of dependent arising. Behind the passion of the last entropic flame, she dances symmetry. Beyond the rippling, silent, midnight wind, she sleeps etheric. Her smile puts the gleam in freshly fallen snow. Her dreams enlighten moonlight. So
there's a lot that's really nice about this.
Yeah, I'm proud of this paragraph, actually.
Yeah, I see you pulling in many of the metaphors from previous worlds. Of course, the dependent arising river waters reminds me of the wind. The And I just really enjoy that enlightened moonlight. I was like, you put light twice. What are you doing? And like, oh, right, because like light,
Yeah.
but also enlightening. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason this is nice text is because this actually was like 4 different paragraphs in the epilogue, and then I came up with more stuff to put in the epilogue, and so this all got squeezed down to a few sentences, but I really love it. So inaudible, her voice ringing out through every note. It's actually not in the rest of this. I'm like pasting together like references to other stuff, like memories being muddled, replaced wholesale. Like that's straight from World 2 of Braid or something of the original game. And pulling on the princess's arm is like also mentioned in somewhere in the epilogue. Yanking on the arm. But anyways, so this is like there's a poem in the Braid credits, which is by like I'm forgetting, like Rilke or something like that, and it's like who has seen the wind? Neither you nor I, but when the trees bow down their heads, the wind is passing by. And there's another stanza of the poem that I think is more literally, that's like mentions the fact it's about time. But anyways, if you go to like here and go, oh, it doesn't say credits, maybe, because whatever. If you go into the options and into the credits, it'll play that poem, and it's about time, right? Because you don't see the wind, you only see the effects of the wind in all of the changing things. So, inaudible, her voice is in every note of sound, inconceivable, all comprehension weaves through her. That's like an ode to time in that same sense, where it's like we can't grab hold of time. It's not a tangible object. In a sense, we never experience it. We're distant from it.
Happening over time.
We can't understand it, but everything in our experience is like it's like imminent everywhere, right? I mean, it's the thing that enables thought. It enables sound and sight and everything. And this was also, by the time I was making this mod, at least by the time I was finishing this mod, I had played The Witness, and so I also wanted to kind of do Braid is like kind of specifically about the mysteries of time, but also in a bigger picture that The Witness gets into more clearly about like consciousness and like why does the universe exist at all? Why is there something instead of nothing? Like the universe follows these laws of physics. Like why aren't they different? You know, why doesn't time or space work differently? But the sort of like fundamental question of like why do we have experiences, like why do we have this experience of time, and why is there something instead of nothing? Those all seem like they're kind of bundled up together, and that's sort of what I'm using the princess metaphor for, not just an atom bomb or like something like that, but as like the fundamental mystery of existence, which is tied up with like why is there something instead of nothing, it's tied up with like all the mysteries about human consciousness, and is tied up with the experience of time and the flow of time.
I'm sorry, but the rest of these books are just not going to compare.
They're not going to live up. They're not going to live up to it. But anyways, so that's like the inconceivable and inaudible, and yet she's everywhere. Yet moves the world is a weird phrase because it refers to Galileo saying, and yet it moves, when he was like being tried for whatever. So it's just like a Galileo reference, I guess.
Wow,
you know?
really?
Yeah,
well,
like
it plays
understanding
so well with the fixed eternal
like she's
Earth.
The laws, the time and space, that like the warped space-time that's doing gravity. You know, fixed eternal Earth is like
the moves, of course, being a pun on like moving emotionally as well.
Yeah, like you think the Earth is fixed at the center of the universe, but there's this secret motion that's enlivening it, right? And it's like time, it's like space, it's
moving, yes.
Yeah. Standing oracular above the river waters of dependent and rising.
So is oracular like eye, like looking, or oracular isn't like foreseeing the future? Oracle.
Foreseeing the future, right? Because dependent and rising is this is a Buddhist reference now to like the chain of being, everything depending on everything else, everything coming, and passing away. Everything is dependent. Nothing has an independent existence.
Right. You
everything
can't come
is
from nothing.
Yeah, everything's made out of all these particles, and the particles are just participating in physics and all this stuff. And so it's just like that there's this amazing process, and she's like governing it all or overseeing it all, right? As the kind of metaphorical embodiment of time, and behind the passion of the last entropic flame, she dances symmetry. There's like that's a question about. Some people just say like, oh, time is like entropy, right? Like it's just the direction of, there being
things breaking down.
Yeah, like the universe, it starts out with low entropy and it's going to have lots of entropy in the future, and then there's going to be heat death of the universe, and like problem solved. That's time. We figured out what time is, and like I'm like, all right, it's interesting that our universe started at a low entropy and goes to high entropy, and I agree that like if you constructed some super contrived situation, then like maybe you could kind of get something that would be sort of like time going in reverse in some local area. But like when you charge a battery or something, like is time going in reverse with battery? Like no, it is not. There's something more to it. Even if you are totally bought into like time is just fully explained by entropy, then it's like you run into all these questions like, okay, so it's the heat death of the universe and like the last proton has died. Like what happened? Does the universe just stop existing? Like it's still there for 100 trillion years, but all those 100 trillion years are just the same moment repeated again and again, right? They're just symmetrical. Or it's like
covered by that bullet, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but no, I mean, it raises these questions that are maybe like, is time just some kind of emergent property of like all the physics particles interacting with each other? Like, is it the interactions that produce our sense of time, and actually it's kind of eternal somehow?
So if you heat up everything, does that mean time goes faster? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like so anyways, that's just me referencing the connection between entropy and time and some of the mysteries that are left unanswered about it, like all those mysteries about like, okay, that's a cool physics fact, but like why is there something instead of nothing? Like why do we have this flow of experience that doesn't seem to be explained by like the M&Ms in the bag getting mixed up?
Answer me, Tim.
Yeah, Tim looking as uncertain as usual about all this stuff. Beyond the rippling silent midnight wind, she sleeps etheric. Her smile puts the gleam of freshly fallen snow. Her dreams enlighten moonlight. There's just all the imagery, especially moonlight is a classic like Zen type thing. When people are trying to invoke consciousness, they use a lot of nature imagery and like imagery of light and stuff as a way of trying to get people to notice the direct sensory thing. And it's like Tim has been searching for her, like it's this hidden thing. Like maybe if I just studied enough physics and built another $10 billion particle collider, then I could like figure out the true theory. And I'm saying like, what about just like in The Witness, like the other side to that, like the scientific side is important if you're going to be able to put any words and data to things, but it's also like you're having the experience of your life right now, and like this mystery that you don't understand is also like right here in front of you in every moment. And there's some text in the epilogue of Braid that's about ghostly she stood in front of him, but he couldn't see her. He knew only how to look at the outsides of things. So anyways, this is just talking about like how imminent and always present like experiences, and so in a way we always have this connection, like incredibly close, sort of like the hidden dimensions that are like less than a proton width away or something.
Time he's looking for her, and yet she's everywhere all the time. It's just hard to see her because she's everywhere all the time.
Yeah. But how could something so essential, absolute, and distant ever manifest? Hidden in a garden beyond the wall of paradise. That's a direct Nicholas of Cusa call out from those incredible audiologues in The Witness. Hidden in a garden beyond the wall of paradise, her mystery outstrips solution and satisfaction. No thinkable thought can fill the ultimate. A dreamtime impression of thou and that, of fiery corridors and shattering crystal. Could even the faintest echo be rendered legible for eyes, ears, mere atoms? This is just what I was saying about like the dimension that's like less than a proton's width away from, or the parallel universe that's like so close to our universe, but it's like in a fourth dimension, that it's in a direction that we can't move in or something. It's like it's this mystery, it's ever present, but it's also so separate from anything that we can articulate or think about. It's like, how do we even get a grasp on it? And if you want to know more about this, basically TLDR, go play The Witness and watch my Witness videos.
In that order.
Yeah, in that order. The videos are extremely spoilery. And I also don't solve the mystery of consciousness in the Witness videos, but I talk more about it, and the Witness is a really good look at the thing. Anyways, but we're talking about Braid here. No thinkable thought can fill the ultimate. That's like, the thoughts, we're not like these like Cartesian rational gods. Like, the thoughts that we experience are the result of like neurons firing in our brains according to like physical laws and the biological architecture they have. There are like certain thoughts that are like not thinkable. Like, all of our thoughts happen forward in time. We can't really get like a god's eye perspective on the universe. Like, what would it mean to like be intelligent but like live outside of time? Like, we can't imagine that because we're just constrained to evolution to be experiencing time in the way that we are. So it's kind of a nod to the anthropic effects that constrain how we can imagine these things. And her mystery outstrips solution and satisfaction is just like sort of the regular Braid message of like, yeah, there's not going to be some fact that you could grab hold of that would like be the enlightenment fact. It's like, because any fact that you could think is going to be too small, and yet the real thing is big enough to be like the incredible enlightenment solution to the universe and like absolute truth and stuff. But then it's like inaccessible, or it's always present, or it's just this very mysterious thing. To hold at once, yeah, not even in little part. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a big question.
Glimpsed all together. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. That one, that is a reference to the Hindu influenced or hippie influenced phrase "thou art that," which is like an idea that definitely hippies picked up, probably from real Hinduism, that like you are God, as opposed to the Christian situation where there's a God above you and you're a separate soul. It's like everything is Atman. Everything is like this field of experience. Is sort of like, anyways, it's just a reference to that way of thinking about things. Like, you're looking out at these objects and you're realizing, I'm that object that I'm looking at. Like, there's no distinction because really I'm the whole universe, or something like that.
That makes a lot more sense in context, but yes.
Yeah. Ghostly, she stood in front of him, referencing that text in Braid's epilogue, and looked into his eyes. The world is drawn into darkness as all light contracts to a point on the horizon. A critical instant invisibly passes. Then a grand and terrible unification hammers into him. Revelation in the ultraviolet. So now we're going back to the imagery of the black holes and stuff. This is like imagery of like rewinding all the way to the beginning of the universe. Like, the world goes into darkness, like all the stars go out, and then all light contracts. Like the universe comes together into like the Big Bang, the grand and terrible unification. This is like the unification of the electroweak force and or of the weak force and electromagnetism, and then the unification of the electroweak force and the strong force, and then perhaps of that and gravity in some way that we don't yet understand. Like, everything coming together in this like moment of density and compressedness, which of course is just like the twist ending of regular Braid. It's like this moment where everything's coming together, and the kind of thing that he's looking for. Also, like the atomic bomb going off, right? It's dark, they're holding the test like before dawn. There's some text in the epilogue of regular Braid about how he felt privileged to witness the birth of the world, felt like the earth had opened and the skies split, and mentions like, everything. Oh yeah, like all space contracted to a pinpoint. So it is also a reference to that. They say that in the moment of theophany, you watch the entire future history of the universe unfold. They say you go blind, that her light is so intense only shadows survive. This is more fun. Theophany means a god appearing to someone, like in a vision. And And famously, like when Apollo would appear to people, like they would go blind because he was like such a perfect, sun god. And watching the entire future history of the universe unfold as you're like falling into a black hole, so the myths go, when you're looking upwards, you see all of the light pouring in. And so like as you're falling in, even though it only takes you a few milliseconds, you get to see the light above you of like all the galaxies spiraling and the whole future history of the universe. And of course, going blind and being fried to a crisp and maybe leaving like a ashy shadow on the brickwork behind you is a classic atomic bomb injury. Yes. All right. So with that all said, I hope you appreciated this text. And another virtue of this text is that is that after you've read it, you're not allowed to call regular Braid's text pretentious, because this is like vastly more pretentious than some BS about like people going to the cinema and whatever. So yeah, nucleosynthesis.
Okay.
Yeah. Imagine my delight and surprise. I always assumed that like these ending levels were just like super hacked up. Like I just assumed, I mean, it's like, yeah, you can play the animation backwards of the, oh god, you can play the animation backwards of the Goombas. Look at that. I can't get out there because they're coming so fast that I get hit with the downward spikes. I don't think downward spikes appear anywhere in regular Braid, before I can hop over. But anyways, so like I thought this was just like, like there's a little Goomba spawner down there, and then like there's to walk this direction. Yeah, they just walk backwards, and then they hit these little triggers to do a jump. And it's like, yes, it is like that, but also they're like the logic does actually work, which is this amazing. I imagine because like Jonathan Blow was doing this, thought, what if I implemented a reverse time world? Tried to make it work for the puzzles, realized like it's a little too hacky for that, but it would be awesome as the final world. So anyways, there was like a real attempt to like make it work consistently, and you can see that here. So if I put the ring here, then you'd think this would just slow down. It's like, why are the Goombas coming more slowly? And it's like, well, of course, because the cannon is going more slowly, so the Goombas show up more slowly all the way over here. Versus if I put the ring here, they're actually being fired from the bottom of there. The Goomba spawner starts shooting them out way more frequently rather than less frequently, because the cannon still has to be sucking them up at the same rate. So the cannon is triggering the Goomba spawner to send them up, and it says, oh, I guess I've got to put up like, have them get super compressed by by this ring. So anyways, I just thought that was like amazing. And shoop, look at all that.
I saw that.
So anyways, you got to put the ring up here actually.
In order to bounce on them over there.
Yeah, and notice we're continuing the proud more now than ever tradition of having multiple time powers enabled by having the ring and the backwards time going on at the same place. There we go. And look at that. The world is transformed from rubble. Oh, there's still spikes up there. From the rubble of the chaotic encounter with everything to now
it's the garden. It's the palace garden.
Yes, it's the palace garden, the entryway and the flowers and the bridge and everything like that. Yes, the background, everything is nice. Everything is nice. Variogenesis, these are all words from like the Big Bang and different theories about the origin of things. And I know exactly where to stop. So now we've got the princess's house and garden and stuff. This is a variant of a puzzle from regular Braid, where if you stomp on these Goombas, then they'll walk up here and get sucked into those cannon
because they have a new path.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this fun like determining the past kind of thing. But guess what? You can do it even more. If you block this cannon,
they're gonna bounce to the other.
They'll bounce to the other cannon
because they can't get into the previous.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did that.
Yeah. And they'll even go to the other one.
As soon as there's a chance.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, but you're gonna need to do that like 3 or 4 times, right? Because you gotta kill a Goomba on the way up.
Sorry. shit. All right. So what we gotta do? You'll notice this is purple, and we got Shadow Tim here.
Yeah, that's not good.
So no, it's great actually. So we are gonna
So can Shadow
bop
Tim
these
pull
damn.
that for us?
Yeah,
while we ride the
he's gonna
Goombas
pull
up?
this, and we're gonna ride the Goombas.
Okay.
Fortunately, you can't kill Goombas in this world because they go back in time. Now, oh shit! Now, the downside is that if you have to, oh thank God, okay. So,
I see what happened there. Is Shadow Tim is no longer going to pull the lever.
yes, he wasn't gonna pull the lever anymore.
But
yeah,
fortunately, he was already predestined
Yeah.
to arrive at the other cannon. So
now we're hopping up here to the princess's little hangout zone. We've got a garage down there with the wine, the car, everything. But good things don't last forever. Back to the ruins. Just I wanted to have these alternating to kind of I don't know, just get people thinking about
the two opposites. Back
yeah,
and
just
forth.
the themes. The fact that there's a kind of symmetry. It's not the one and then the other, but they're like the one is going forward in time and the other backwards in
table
time.
has fallen over.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like that guy knocking the wine off the thing.
Yeah. All right, now we had the ring, we had the shadow world, and guess what? It's back in time, but with walking back and forth. It's the World 4 stuff. We got this. Notice we got this cool lightning in the background.
If you walk forward, then you're walking backwards in time.
Yes. See, things are going back in time. Fireballs getting sucked back into the cannons. Goombas walking backwards.
Undying.
Yeah, it's not that dramatic because it's kind of just the usual, except you're walking to the left instead of to the right. But that's okay. I don't want to have a super hard puzzle as the final thing. So anyways, we have this little green thing here. And when we open that, a funny thing starts happening, okay? So, let's actually... So, the cannonballs are actually going successfully in there. This is a little bit buggy. This lifts, triggering the other cannon to start firing from as far away as it possibly can.
So you're going backwards.
Which is actually over here. So, yeah, it's like, you see what happened there? A random fireball forms in midair,
because it's coming from
but then collided.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impossible time.
Yeah. So there's this little explosion happening here now, which is kind of just wacky and paradoxical. And you'll notice, look, if I run back over here...
That's because it's a green lever. So you've always pulled it, and the further you go forward in time... the more it continues to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if we go back to the very beginning of this level, then they will fire at the same time.
Oh.
Because they'll both start, at the same
the
time at the very beginning of the level.
Yeah. Wow.
And then we have this. Now, previously this was impassable because there's a fireball right there, but now they have annihilated each other. We can walk right through the explosion.
Unexpected.
Feels like some kind of poetic atom bomb type situation.
This is exactly like ice cubes in the middle of the sun.
Yeah. We got a nice chandelier up there.
Nice. Riding the Goombas. Oh, okay.
This time we've got the style of Tim's house.
I can't believe you
real
broke
world
that cannon. That's amazing.
Out there.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
All right. Get ready for it. This ending. So the ending level here is the exact same level geometry as regular Braid, except tweaked by Not Great, the modder whose mod I kind of started from when I was making More Now Than Ever, and Not Great tweaked all of the timing of the elements to force you to go faster in order that you can make it to the end to get the hidden secret ending of Braid without needing to do the stars and stuff like that. It's just like a tougher platforming challenge, but you don't need to rewind and do the wacky lever that turns green when you collect all the stars and stuff like that. But my only contribution, because the final level is so complicated, there's so many little triggers for when the princess is going to move around and everything, like I didn't want to mess with it. And I couldn't think of a better ending than just the secret ending of regular Braid. But the art in this is a true treat. So enjoy this spectacular ending from gameplay by Not Great and art by yours truly. Here we are in Tim's house aesthetic, and then as you see, we're going to go through all of the worlds in sequence in art style.
Yeah, most of this, I mean, like the prints and stuff is the same.
Yeah, all
but
the same.
Everything else
yeah,
is different in terms of the.
because he's
decor.
re-examining that up. I'm also going to have to rewind a lot in
Oh.
order to be. Why? I gotta go earlier.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you have to, wow, you have to really nail the speed in this because of the way the level is designed. So there's going to be a lot of like maximizing the speed as much as possible. Nice. Open those ladders. Alright.
Through World 6, to World 5, pillows and
Draping
curtains and
furniture.
things.
Yeah, this is where the like platforming and like trying to use the mechanics of the level comes into play. Oh, there you go.
Wonderful. World 4.
World 1 or
Yeah.
2, whatever.
Let me do that. Maybe we could do better. Ah. Sorry.
Nice.
Alright, whatever.
The thing is, I think there's some points here where like you have to wait for the stuff to catch up to you, question mark? So there's some points at which it kind of resets in here. I was trying to do
This is a
earlier.
very weird thing. You gotta kind of get the balance off here. This is like, I mean, I don't know. It's a platforming challenge, obviously, which maybe for some people is like not good.
Okay, you gotta bounce there. No, I think that was it.
Yeah.
As long as you can catch this Goomba, then like again, like as long as you land up there, it's not like you can go faster.
And then the sort of from World 1 to the like decayed princess's house.
Right. So is this like Tim remembering like
and
everything?
then to the increasingly orderly pre-atomic bomb princess's house. Yeah, this is like it's just the more now than ever theme. I mean, really, it's like a reward for players after having played through more now than ever. Like, what's the ending gonna be? And then it's actually not changed gameplay, but I wanted to like really have some fantastic art so that people could enjoy that. But it's also the theme of more now than ever, which is like it's all the layers, it's all coming together, it's all kind of getting muddled, but also becoming like richer with these extra details. We're gonna skip this actually. Even though, now see, the timing here has been done that by Not Great in his After the Epilogue mod, such that you can get the secret ending without, you know, without the actual
stars.
The stars, yeah. But just by getting good TM. Princess is running past the parody Mona Lisa up there. The
I don't know what's that.
I think that was like something in original. I think this maybe doesn't show up in original Braid, but like the outline is there. Like Dave Hellman made that art, and I think that was going to be something that like changes when you rewind or go forward, because she has the normal Mona Lisa hanging in her painting, or like changes when you get the secret ending or something. I think it doesn't show up in the actual game because the Mona Lisa with the mustache and LMQQ, it's like some famous absurdist found art kind of thing from like the 1930s or whatever. So it's just like a parody of the perfection that he's ascribing to the princess and all that.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyways, you go through all the worlds and through the princess's house, and then just into like a kind of like dissolution into nothingness, you know?
Yeah. Crazy. Like the symbols that are like not even.
Yeah.
It's
It's like primordial chaos. There used to be some like secret room or something, but anyways, on to the actual ending anyway. And we have the like nuclear detonation super moment. The princess's house. Of course, as I've mentioned in the other Braid video, all these things are like, this is the castle from World 1 and the chair and, you know, the whine that shows up in the paintings, the little Goomba cannon, and so on and so forth. And the backgrounds of World 1. Again, going with my interpretation of like this being the sort of the most delusional world as he's closest to, you know, to tracking down the princess. And then, but I guess walking this way is kind of reading the stories in order. Then going into World 3, the more like kind of somber adult world, and then the nostalgia of looking back on all the previous eras in life, and then the thinking of the different decisions and the parallel paths. What if things had gone differently? And then finally the kind of like formalist alienation of World 6, and like the uncertainty about you know, about what to do in life, or the purpose of things, and then into the present day, outside of Tim's house. And then instead of entering through the house, we repeat the the action of the prince, because of course the prince is, as I'm sure I also will discuss in the regular Braid videos, the prince is like Tim, the Goombas are Tim, everyone's Tim. The prince has the same orange hair. He's got the he has like a little tie stuffed out of the armor. So he's like Tim seeing his previous self, like the person who took the travel bag and walked out the door and left the princess behind, versus the one who is going the other direction. So this is like climbing up the ladders of these vines is a way to mention that duality. Like, he's not just some other character. He's like Tim's perception of himself, or like Tim going the opposite way in time, or something along those lines. And now into the epilogue with some like fun extraneous art that I found in the Braid files from Dave Hellman. We're back in the clouds, of course, being like the abstract realm of contemplation. And interestingly, I never thought of this before, but at the end of all of the usual Braid levels, you just are like thrown right back into the game, almost like waking from a dream, like really suddenly. You're like, it just like the screen flicks, you're talking to Dinosaur, and then it's like, whoa, like I'm in my kitchen. Versus here, for all the shock of the twist ending, it actually, the epilogue in regular Braid is like very gentle. The ending is like this devastating thing. And then the epilogue, it's more confused now than ever, but it's also kind of putting a bit of a softer edge on what would otherwise be this harsh story of like, actually you're just this creepy stalker and you created this weapon of mass destruction, and everything you did is wrong. So
do you want to read the books, or should I read the books?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Tim is walking along the beach, looking for new stones to add to his castle. He has been here before. This particular stretch of shoreline has become one of his favorite spots. The first few times he visited, the beach was a cornucopia of treasures. In those early days, it was easy to find new pieces for the castle. But now, it's much rarer that he uncovers something really wonderful. Noticing this, Tim finds it hard to understand his desire to revisit this specific place again and again.
Yeah. So this text is about
it's about being a mega fan.
Yeah,
of
it's about
Braid.
being a Braid super fan. So, or being a super fan of anything. So the beach iconography is like the beach in The Witness, right? Because I'm sort of making this mod. I've played The Witness by the time I'm finishing this mod, And so I'm like maybe building this as like a bit of a bridge between the two, where this is like this kind of zealous, narrow-minded search for truth in this like scientific sense, and then the witness has gotten, and it's like full of this like storm and drang of like, you know, princess sexual metaphors and like, you know, memories of, you know, his parents and growing up and the way he felt slighted and stuff. Versus the witness is this like calm land of contemplation and repose and sort of like the good life. So I'm like, you know, how do we get from here to there? So the shoreline imagery is like you can picture Tim like arrived on the, I don't know, like on the island of the witness, even though that's totally incongruous. Um, and but in terms of like the cornucopia of treasures, the finding the new pieces for the castle, that's like it's when you start playing Braid, when you start playing any game like Fez, or you know, a lot of games have this same cycle where in the beginning you just can walk through the levels. There's like this amazing art, you're exploring, you're finding all this new stuff. You can get the puzzle pieces very easily if it's a puzzle game.
Yeah, I mean, this applies to like Skyrim or really any game where it's just like you don't know what's around the next corner. But then once you've played a game and you kind of get the feel of like what's actually going on, it swaps to being almost a completely different game. Like you're no longer figuring out the
Yeah, it becomes this
rules. What
completionist
is this
thing.
about? Yeah, it's
Like you got to
about like
trek all the way across the map to like find the last like Deku nut or whatever the hell it is that people collect in Breath of the Wild. You know, like you got to find that last puzzle piece in Braid that's like the puzzle that you just can't figure out for the life of you. You know, be it like Fickle Companion or you know one of the tricky ones with the ring or something. Um, and uh, and that you know, that process, like the very thing that I like about Braid and the Witness and, you know, Outer Wilds and Edith Finch and all these other games and about all the books and movies that I like is their density of ideas. But then it's like, well, but if I replay them and re-examine them so much and like I've already kind of like squeezed them dry of all of those moments of experience. So it's like, why do I still want to come back to it? Am I like over trained on the fact that like this used to provide this density of experience, but now it's like getting harder and harder for me to find the new things, just like solving the puzzles, you know, then you're like, okay, well, like maybe I'll try and get the stars in Braid now because like I've ran out of puzzles to get. Or like I thought Fez was interesting, you know, as a sort of like Braid like game, because it starts off not even as a puzzle game, but just as a kind of story exploration game, and then it becomes kind of a puzzle platformer, and then it becomes kind of like a find the hidden stuff using
almost an
clever mechanics
ARG.
platformer. Yeah, and then it becomes like a total ARG at the end where there's like stars, like individual pixels blinking codes and like stuff that you have to decode on the internet. Um, and that was sort of like in a way, a kind of exaggerated or purified version of this experience that happens with a lot of games where, you know, you start out with this early exploration and then it gets like tougher and tougher and you sort of get more and more out of it, and then it's, you know, you're on this diminishing returns path and it's like, why am I still here? So this is like this question that I was asking myself when I was finishing this mod, like kind of like, why am I doing this, you know? Like it's like I could just be playing other games or something, or doing other things. And of course this is true, you know, you might imagine someone who's like rereading a favorite book of theirs, or you know,
Yeah,
people do this all the
yeah. Like I
time,
love this
and it's like
thing,
it's not
but they
just
love the memory of what it was the first
yeah,
time.
it's like there
Yeah.
must be something more to it than just like trying to get, because Tim's whole journey when he's getting the puzzle pieces, the whole metaphor of Braid is that like you're getting the puzzle pieces, and to do that you're using this scientific thinking, which is developing this kind on this kind of same diminishing returns, like harder and harder, gotta go for these more extreme things. At first you could just like, you know, throw balls through the air and draw parabolas, and now you gotta like notice that like the spin on the electron is like 1 trillionth different than like the predictions from your like supercomputer models and stuff. And so the whole metaphor with Braid is like that there is this, that the puzzle pieces are like collecting these moments, like stones of, you know, moments of understanding, putting those together, and it's sort of like getting those moments, or like the moments of insight, like, you know, aha, I understand this puzzle now,
Mm.
are what you're there for. So then this is kind of raising the question like, well, wait a second, like, you know, I still like this game, I've done all the puzzles, I've even played all the mods, and but it's like there's something else about this that's not just the kind of Tim-like kind of obsessive collection of the insight moments and stuff.
Tim started out simply enough, just gathering useful stones. Later, he began construction, building up an embankment, laying a foundation. But now, he is trying to assemble a castle, which takes more than just effort and dedication. Battlements, buttresses, crenellations, mezzanines, antechambers, finials, the combination of possibilities is intimidating.
Yeah, this was about kind of making the mod, which is also, of course, in making the mod, I was trying to do like an ode to the original game, and an ode to like all of the things that I like so much about Braid. And so it's like this is about the different constraints and the formal rules and things that you have to kind of balance against each other in order to make
something that's like an artwork or beautiful. Or
or like the different constraint, the kind of artistic constraints that I was enjoying working with when when working on the mod.
Something worthy.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Of course, there's always a chance something marvelous is still waiting to be discovered, a find overlooked on every previous excursion. This happens sometimes. Yesterday he spotted a beautiful shell half buried in the sand. It had a striking luster, unlike any he had seen before, and Tim was happy to add it to the castle. But Tim is beginning to sense that the real reason he enjoys this spot might lie beyond even the many treasures he's acquired here.
Yeah, so this is just the same as that previous the previous stuff I was talking about, the acquiring the stones. It's like this is describing more the path of diminishing returns, and it's like sometimes you still get that stuff, and it's great,
so,
but it's like that
like
can't really be the reason,
Yeah.
Like it would be kind of crazy to just like I should just go somewhere else and try and find different treasures. Yeah.
It is kind of weird. I never thought about this before, but yeah, why don't we start to dislike games?
Yeah.
When we read them,
I mean, I kind of do, but yeah, but then with some, I'm like I like just like chilling in this world or something, or there's something, I don't know. Yeah.
Even the most basic considerations are in flux. Should the castle be a hardened defensive structure, or an ornamented ceremonial design? Should it strive to present a diverse cosmopolitan synthesis of everything a palace could be, or focus narrowly on exploring its own idiosyncratic style? What traditional architecture conventions should be incorporated into the design, and which should be ignored or deliberately subverted?
Yeah, so this is again following. There's like the two threads here. The first is like me relating to the game Braid as as sort of a like an exhausted fan who has like gone through and played all this stuff, and then the second is me writing a little bit of like postscript about the act of designing it, and my sort of the questions that come up over the course of that.
It's a little bit funny because like this is very different. I mean, part of it's because it's you, but part of it is also because I feel like Tim coming into this, like building as opposed to discovering, and it's like, well, there's too many options. He's used to like narrowing down, and now he's like trying to build up. And secondarily, like, again, like when you build something good and beautiful, like what makes it good? Is it like being comprehensive, or is it doing one thing really well?
Yeah. And these are also both, of course, I'm talking about how these are like me talking about the game and stuff, but there's this one story of Tim sort of like on the beach of the Witness Island, like kind of moving on from his previous ideology or outlook, and becoming more like more I guess satisfied, or like less suffering in like the Buddhist sense, and more kind of like interested in sort of like the wholeness of the present moment rather than feeling like there's this absence that he needs to go out and quest after. And then that second thing is like also, rather than the second thread about building the castle, is kind of like, instead of it being one moment, this is more a continuation of what Braid says in the original epilogue to the main game, is that instead of there being like one uber moment that is like enlightening the world with its perfection, there's all of these different moments, and they can be piled up, and not just piled up, but put into a structure, and it's not like an enlightened crystal palace of forever, but it's like it's like a home. It's like a structure that you can exist between. Yeah, it's this kind of beautiful structure that you can like live in. I mean, like a house, like a mental structure, it's like ideas that you can relate to, and this sort of like building the structure of many ideas has its own kind of joy that's different from just seeking out the Uber experience.
That's very interesting. Yeah, right. There's the moment of eureka, but then after that, you have to do all the like, okay, but what does it mean, and how do I use it? And like,
yeah. And that's what I'm experiencing also in these videos, and in like my examining the witness videos and things. Like it's like I've already, I've like done the puzzles and stuff, so the eureka moments are behind me. Every once in a while, just like Tim, like there's always a chance something marvelous is still waiting to be discovered. I'll be like, oh, like that's cool. I didn't notice that connection before or whatnot. But it's like what's really fun about it is the sort of building the thought structure, tying together the little moments into a greater sense of the whole, and that's sort of like that becomes part of the reason why I like the kinds of media I like, I guess, is not just because they have a density of cool experiences. Otherwise, you could make like a WarioWare style game, and I'd be like, this is the coolest thing I've ever played, But because they're tied together in this cohesive overall structure, there's like something magical about that.
Do you stand behind the curtain, or is that
no, actually, because the green books like shut you down. You have to, yeah.
When he stands still, Tim can feel the fresh ocean wind pass by. He can listen to the calls of many colorful birds, too numerous to name. And he can watch as waves move over the surface of the ocean. Big swells combine and separate, crashing on the sand and sliding up the shore, then washing back, reforming and heading out to sea. Tide and riptide, somehow simultaneously opposing, passing through, and merging together.
Yeah, so this is sort of about the like mindfulness and like conscious awareness themes of the witness. What?
Is this a reference to like the waves on the ocean Buddhism thing?
No.
Okay,
Actually, well, tide and riptide is like is from the final worlds right before you're about to confront the princess and everything in regular Braid, where it's talking to you about how the other people in the city experience time in reverse, and it uses tide and riptide as a metaphor for that. And so then I have that next sentence to make it more, because so when waves like literally happen, the waves come in, they're like, they're literal waves, like, energy patterns or whatnot moving forward. They crash on the shore, they go up the shore with all that energy like sloshing upwards, but then they have all that potential energy, so they slosh back downwards. They make a new wave. It's smaller. There's energy been lost in turbulence or whatever. But you can see this on a beach sometimes. If you go out there, you can see hidden amidst the big waves coming in that the sloshed back, the water that hits the shore will generate a new smaller wave that'll flow outwards. And that's why sometimes you get like a wave that looks really big, that's going to be like a monster wave, but then it peters out, is because that's actually two waves that are like interfering constructively and getting tall, but then it was like mostly then they pass through. So anyways, this is somehow simultaneously opposing, passing through, and merging together, right? So it's like I don't know, just the tide and riptide thing is just a reference to the time going in two directions, and the people in the story of Braid living in different directions of time. listening to the calls of many colorful birds, too numerous to name. This is like in the very beginning of in World 2, he talks about how the princess and him lounged in the castle garden giving names to the colorful birds, like Adam and Eve. But also giving names to the birds is like a Carolus Linnaeus thing of like, I am going to taxonomify every bird, and that's like exactly what Tim would do, right?
I'm gonna
But
solve
then,
nature.
yeah, exactly. But now he's like on the island of the witness. He's like,
Yeah.
maybe I'm not gonna name all these birds, you know? Like maybe I can just appreciate the like visual experience of these birds or something. And like that's closer to truth than like categorizing each bird by like the length of its femur or something, you know?
It's like what is a bird? Is it a name or is it a bird?
Yeah. And when he stands still, you know, I mean, this is like, I don't know, I think of Tim, even though you spend a lot of the time in the game just like standing there being confused by the fickle companion level. But you know, but I think of him as kind of always like charging ahead, ready to like stomp on those Goombas and stuff, and not stopping to smell the roses because ghostly she stood in front of him and, you know, he can't look at the insides of things and stuff like that. Now, this is a tricky one. I think this involves using the okay, so we just have to like
be green.
No, rewind until the book. Yeah, okay, so that book just opened. So we rewound past the time when we ran past the green one. All right, so now we can do it. It's just not gonna give it to us. There we go.
Tim also struggles to elegantly fit the castle's interior rooms, each with a unique shape attuned to its particular function, into the exterior facade, which should provide an impression of regularity and symmetry. 2 bastions are erected simultaneously. Hidden within the physical stonework is an invisible citadel, whose walls are the principles of construction, whose doors and rooms are the tensions between competing considerations, and dialogue of interrelated details.
Yeah, so this is more about the artistic constraints that I admire so much about Braid and that I was trying to imitate with this game. So like the exterior facade being like regular and symmetrical. This is like all the worlds in Braid having the same number of levels, and and the levels in Braid often referencing the past levels, but with a totally different game mechanic. So there's actually like totally different mechanics in play, but it's finding a way to like make those have the same shape. And then in Braid More Now Than Ever, you know, like Not Great and the other modders, including myself, are like trying to find ways to like remix the original levels to make it more difficult, or to like require different techniques in order to solve, or like enable different time powers, and you know, and try and or like come up with whole new levels that still reference the earlier levels in some way, like the amount of fun that I had with the cloud-based levels. I talked in some of the earlier episodes how like I had trouble trying to squeeze in like there's so much stuff that you can do with like the ring, like stopping time, accelerating time, slow turning time negative, and there's also so much that you can do with that, plus like the shadow and the cloud world. So I had to like think and be like, wait a second, like this is actually just a World 4 puzzle that doesn't need the ring power that much, or like it doesn't benefit that much from it, so like I better move it to World 4 because there's like all this good stuff that needs to go into the final world, you know, and so on and so forth. Oh, I should also, speaking of puzzle design, one of the things that we'll preview when we get to the other mods is that this is a totally random comment, but I talked earlier in this video about how the mechanics of the negative worlds are like actually compatible with some of the different time powers and are like more of a simulation that I would have guessed. I would have guessed to be totally hacked up. And how I wanted to like illustrate that a little bit with a few puzzles. But other mods have actually taken that significantly further. Like you can go even a little bit crazier. It's still like you have to do some hacks, but there's some crazy stuff that you can do in the negative one world just as a gameplay thing. But anyways.
Tim realizes that here, right now, the beach is far from exhausting all its possibilities. In fact, despite its increasing familiarity, the shore has somehow become much more interesting and strange. He appreciates details, like that iridescent shell, that he never would have recognized on earlier visits. Occasionally, one of these tiny details reveals itself to be the tip of something huge, fascinatingly complex. Other times, indeed, this seems to be happening more now than ever, Tim feels himself pervaded by deep mysteries, with connections he can barely even begin to articulate. Jackson's very excited about the fact that he said the name of the thing in the thing.
Breaking out the finger guns for that one. This is kind of putting a positive spin on the more confused now than ever, which at the end of regular Braid was almost sort of like a joke I think partially to the player. Like, it was like the second to last paragraph in the entire thing is like, perhaps he's more confused now than ever, nodding to the player, like the gamers who are like playing Braid and just being like, what? Like, this epilogue isn't making things clear at all. Like, what's going on? So I thought that was funny, and then that became the title of the mod, because I'm like, yeah, you thought that was confusing. But also, of course, in Tim's experience, like, everything is all muddled and mixed up. But then this is like, not everything has to be like given. Like, it's not good to be muddled, and it's not good to, even though I kind of enjoy, like, that's sort of the joke of the game. Like, it's what I like about Braid is that it throws so much stuff at you that you become muddled and confused. But like, the game, in fact, is like not muddled and confused. Like, the stuff is all there for a reason. See, I'm not even being clear when I'm explaining this, but this is what I like about it. It's like it's so rich that it's like hard to get a hold of,
Right. They don't give you any time to pause and absorb. Everything is totally new, every single level. So you don't have any time to like actually.
There's just a lot going on. It's just very deep, you know?
Very dense.
So I'm like totally in favor of like clear thinking and having that sort of like super like penetrating scientific understanding that Tim is all about. But there's also, at the same time, you don't want to be trapped in this world where you can only look at the outsides of things, where you're giving like the OCD like taxonomic names to all the birds, and that's your only way of appreciating the birds, and things like that. So it's I don't know, that's a little bit what this is about. It's about kind of tuning into that more, I don't know, the sort of sense of connection with like the imminence of the mysteries of the universe, and the fact that we're like having this experience now, sort of just this like meditative, like conscious awareness of things, which Tim was previously not able to appreciate, and now he's like beginning to catch on to this after going back through all this and
noticing the things that worked and didn't work. Right, so I'm confused because that's green. So if you ever rewind, you're just going to be back there. But if you're back there, then you're between the books.
Yeah, this is Bob's hopping up, and then you can like go over here.
No, that works, so it's okay. Okay. Building a castle can certainly be tedious, or even painful, when a large chunk of previous effort must be thrown away. But Tim knew this when he started. In fact, he enjoys building more now than ever. He wants to make something beautiful, with great depth, to communicate the wonders he feels when considering any complex mix of ideas. A home for a good life, a final palace where we can exist in peace. Slowly he's getting there, the best way he knows how.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the princess in the background.
Yeah. You gotta, okay, wait, we gotta get these books off the screen. Too many books in this game. It's an official,
You're the one who put so
official
much
Braid
text in.
fact. You see right above the orange book, we have a ghostly princess overseeing all the proceedings, like the ghostly princess who he can't see because he can only look at the outsides of things. It's like it's starting to come together, It's like, and look at, it's like they all have different parallax layers. So they like,
I did not. Wow. All right.
Anyways, pretty cool. Sorry to my own horn, but that's what these whole books are all about. So it's just
Yeah, that's why you put the books in,
where it's
just to
at.
brag
Yeah.
as hard as possible.
Yeah.
Back when he was still chasing after the princess, those sorts of things would have bothered him greatly. He wouldn't have been able to relax until he had the offending phenomena fully surrounded. He would have become almost angry if the world was not disclosing itself as quickly as he demanded.
These are referring to the things that he can't quite put a name and a number to, like
right,
the kind
like
of
the shell that he was like appreciating.
yeah, the
but,
things that
like,
aren't totally articulable.
Mhm. Nowadays, he feels a little differently. Always some part of him will want to puzzle out all the strange inconsistencies he encounters on his walks. That's a good thing, he supposes.
Of course, again, being like a both Tim's story and the story of the puzzle gamer, right? Who is like enjoying the new puzzles, but also there's like a deeper kind of I don't know, sense of
Right, it's not just the puzzles anymore. It's also just
yeah,
like appreciation for the other things.
and like the form of the art and stuff.
Right. But at the same time, another part of him senses that somehow, just being here, the witness to all of this, the sun's warmth, the smell of the salt air, the sound of surf crashing rhythmically on the island, somehow it's enough.
Yeah. So the ending of original Braid also ends, I think, with somehow it's enough, or with it definitely ends with the sentence enough of testing the stone's weight and and building up the castle. It's like this moment of disappointment. He didn't get the uber truth that he was seeking, but he has this thing has some tangibility. It's not infinite, but it's also not
Right.
meaningless nothingness.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
it's
it's here,
stark, yeah.
just like our experience of life. Like it's not like infinitely fulfilling, but it's like, well, life has the meaning that it has. It's not nothingness. Yeah, and then of course here the witness to all of this, and
The beach, the
this
island.
red, yeah, that it's literally an island. Like that is kind of like a last minute twist, non sequitur that he's on the island, and this little castle here has been decorated with these pink flowers. Like, yeah, this is the wisteria or whatever. Yeah, bougainvillea or something.
Yeah.
That's all over the witness, or specifically the very Braid-esque castle, the tutorial castle island of the witness.
When you start the witness, yeah.
Yeah. As with ordinary Braid, we've got this wall of like future blocks yet to be carved, more adventures to be had. It's cool cloud up here, which would have been a real troll move if I like made this an actual secret item that like moves across the map really slowly after so much fan speculation of regular Braid. But anyways, this is cool. And that's the mod. That's more now than ever. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this series. Hope you enjoyed playing some of the mod if you downloaded it yourself over the course of these videos. Yeah, thanks for listening along with us. We will be back in the future with some episodes about, who knows, definitely about the witness, and possibly about
Other things.
yeah, maybe some highlights from the other Braid mods of some of my favorite levels. Maybe like witness adjacent games like the Looker or something. Yeah, but on the other hand, don't believe anything that I say because I was halfway through a witness series and then I ditched it for 3 years. So if it's gonna be another 3 years, then adios. I'll see you on the other side. Thanks so much for accompanying me on this journey.